me just check that nothing will bleep.
Hello and welcome to It's Not Just Magic. I am your host, Cassie Clayton, and with me today is Krystal Hill, and we are, Krystal, I'm so excited to have you with me today.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
So, go ahead and tell us a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your past, and tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and kind of how you got there.
Okay, sounds good. So currently, I'm the founder and CEO of Hill House Publishing, which is a hybrid publishing house specializing on multi-author books, but I also do solo books with the intention to awaken and empower humanity. So they're anything that's in the personal development, anything that's here to raise consciousness on the planet to help us move into a more sustainable way of living. That's the kind of stories I love to share. I've done this for 18 months. And yeah, the way I got into it, I think I want to backtrack completely because, you know, one of the questions that you share is about when did you decide to follow your passion? And I had to, and how did you get into your current business? And I'm like, I've always followed my passion. I've never been in corporate. I think that's one of the things about me. I've never been in corporate. As a teenager, I always knew I was here to help people. I thought it was through psychology, but very soon when I did my research in high school, I realized it wasn't for me. Psychology at the time just felt too scientific, and I was wanting more soul. So I didn't do that. I took a gap year, went to the UK, and fell into one of my passions. I was the editor of the school magazine. So there's a link. I feel like I've come full circle. I studied English literature and theatre studies and then became a theatre director. And the way I chose that was I've always listened to the universe. I've always kind of co-created my life. I've always been aware of that. My dad was a church minister. And so there's these higher realms, you know, they've just been with me, whether that was religion or, you know, what I then translated into source and higher consciousness and universal energy. But I also had experiences as a child seeing light beings and things. And so I'd always, when people, you know, as a teenager saying, you know, do you believe in God? I'm like, yeah, I do, because I've seen him. You know, it's like I have an experience of that in my life. So I never had to go through these existential questions. It was just always there. And so I've always co-created with that. I'm just pausing to see how much in detail I want to go here. But basically, I always ask the universe, you know, if I make it in New York I went to New York for 5 months. If I make it here in the theater world off Broadway, I'll take that as a sign that I should go and become a theater director. And then in my, you know, early 20s mind, yes, I'd made it because I was acting, directing, and a play of mine was put on off Broadway. And so that was enough of a sign to say, yeah, that's what I'll do. So I did that for 7 years in London. I was also doing education outreach for the Royal Shakespeare Company and just it was pretty good. It was a lot of fun. I loved having that creative expression. And really the skills that I harnessed here was to bring out the best in people. As a director, I could see their potential, I could see the play, and I was bringing those two together and really bringing the best out in the actors to give their best performance on stage. And I also loved to understand what makes humans tick. Why do we do what we do? And I understood that in literature. I understood that I was able to analyze these plays and bring all of that alive on stage as well. And then that door closed. And suddenly the flow stopped. I'm like, what's going on? And I said, okay, I'm going to give myself a year, because I actually had a divorce. I had a divorce. Everything was taken away from me because I needed to focus on the relationship to realize that that was not in my alignment anymore. Mm-hmm. And I gave myself a year to reestablish my theater career, and it just wouldn't. Anything that worked previously didn't work anymore. Oh, wow. And so I think that's really important for us to, you know, for those listening, just to kind of look into when there is a block, when things that you want to do just don't work out. There's two reasons. Either you're not meant to, or there's some you're not aligned energetically, and there's something that you need to work through in order to become an energetic match for that desire. And so for me, it just wasn't. And then I was asking the universe, where to now? Where am I meant to be? Long story short, the end of that quest was a dream, a literal dream that said I was flying in a plane and it was saying, welcome to Australia. I'm like, okay. That was the end of a string of synchronicities that I had. And so I bought my flight ticket. I came to Australia on a tourist visa. And that was in 2006, and I'm still here. And I just knew I was meant to be here. I then didn't like the theatre scene in Australia. I just, it just wasn't aligning. It didn't feel right. I didn't want to start from scratch, creating connections. And then I journaled myself into clarity. I became a life coach and transformational coach, NLP practitioner in 2008, which was answering that teenage calling to help people. Now I had life experience, and now I could do that in real life. So again, I was bringing the best out of people in that. Come COVID, fast forward to that. By pre-COVID, I was running events in Melbourne, Brisbane, and Sydney about conscious relating and, just empowerment and conscious communication. And that all stopped my business. And I had the foresight to know that this isn't going to stop in a hurry. I need to rebrand. I need to pivot. I need to find something else. And I found myself speaking about, again, the conscious leaders need to step up and stand up and be empowered. And I felt that a lot of us, including myself, were not doing that because of the fear of persecution, because of past life traumas around witch hunts or whatever there might be, tall poppy syndrome. And so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to help the conscious leaders to change the narrative that was happening in mass media by giving us alternative stories. And then another sign from the universe came that the publisher that I was doing 2 multi-author books with in 2020 suddenly decided that she was going to help people, train people to do what she does. And I had a full body yes. I'm like, what? How's that helping? Like I didn't make the connection at the time, but I trusted it. I had a chat with a few friends and ran it past a few people, and they're like, no, yeah, that does strangely that is in alignment with you. And so I started it early 2021. I've published now, I'm on my 5th multi-author book. I now recognize that I am again helping my clients or the contributors in these books bring the best out, helping them shape their story so that an audience, a reader, can relate to them, have a transformational experience, but it also positions them in a really powerful way. So that's a really long answer to tell you how I got to where I am. But I felt it's nice to sometimes see the arc of somebody, especially of somebody like me who was always followed the signs and seemingly have had worked in 3 completely different industries.
Right.
But how they all connect.
Right. Well, and I do love your story because you do have so many, it's like, well, this led you to that and that led you to that. And I find the same kind of in my own life choices and careers. It's kind of like, and because as well, I run, we both are owners of our own companies and things like that, which is phenomenal. But it's like when people go, wait, you're intuitive and you know computers. It's like, yes, I do. And then they're like, how did that happen? And I'm like, well, but yeah, the universe does have a way of really just kind of, when it's no longer working, I feel like I just went through a shift myself where it was like all of a sudden where I was at, I was like, I need to go. I can't tell you why. I can't tell you what happened. Bye. Yes. And off in a different direction. And it's been like good thing after good thing after good thing after good thing. So it's kind of one of those, you just, when the universe is saying, you're going this direction. Oh, okay.
And if you don't listen, then all the blockages come your way, right?
Right.
But if you do jump off the cliff and just trust it and just so like go off a whim, as you said, the magic opens up.
Absolutely. And just before the show started, you were sharing with me some of your really good news about your upcoming books. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've just been recovering from a brain tumor surgery, and while I was doing that, that was only a month ago. So it's quite incredible how fast I've been recovering, and all I think again that is all due to numerous things which we can go into. But I want to just answer that question first. So while I was recovering, I was listening a lot to Laurie Ladd, who has got quite a big following. She's working in the field of, elevating human consciousness and helping people through this incredibly challenging transition, and is talking about cognitive dissonance and all of that sort of stuff. And I just love her transmissions. I love how real and how human she is. And I was like suddenly getting that voice, maybe she could be in your next book. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe. And I left it, and I watched a couple of days go by. I watched some more. Voice comes back. I'm like, okay, I'll act on it. So last night I was too tired to act on it, but I actually opened her website to the contact form, so that in the morning when I was fresh, I would send her a message. So I sent her a message at 9 a.m. this morning, and 4 hours later, I get a response saying, yes, Laurie would love to be in your book. So it's just been phenomenal again when you listen. And she is the third kind of big name that I've had in my book. So I had Dr. John DiMartini, who many people know. Then I had Dr. Larry Farwell, who is one of the top 100 inventors of the century, who works again, and he's created a book, The Science of Creating Miracles. So he's combining those two worlds as well. And now her. So I'm excited. And I almost had given up on this, on having a big name in the book, because I've got brain surgery, and yeah, maybe I should just lay low with this one. But the voice kept coming, and here it is. So I'm super excited and grateful.
That's so awesome. And again, it's just another one of those, like, you get that nudge.
Yeah.
You get the nudge to just ask. And I just kind of want to touch on that point just a little bit, because a lot of the times we get so scared of the no, oh my gosh, this person has such a huge following, or this is somebody I have such high respect for, or we come up with all these different reasons why somebody's going to tell us, no, we don't want to collaborate with you, or no, we don't want to be a part of what you're doing. And really, when you just ask, that's when you get the super fun surprises.
Yes. And the other thing I did, and this is I think as well key, it's like become an energetic match to your desires. I think that's so important. And so before I sent that message, I really connected to her soul, and I really felt her in my being, and I know how our intentions and our missions are aligned. So I connected with that alignment, and then I sent it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk for a second, because I feel like it comes up a lot, especially because, as business owners, a lot of the times, like, we are human. we have our good days, we have our bad days, and we have those days that we struggle, and or those days where we're in total alignment with what we're doing. And I've heard it mentioned many times in networking groups of, like, if you're not in that energy and you're not in that space, like, it's better just to not send the message at all than to try to do it when you're in that space.
I agree.
Tell me your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Yes. So it's so true, because I've learned a lot from Dr. Joe Dispenza as well, where we go into the field, like attracts like, and we all know that. So when I have those days as well, when I'm feeling in scarcity, it's like, oh my God, I really need to get some more money in order to pay the next, so I can afford to pay my business coach or whatever it might be. If I jump on a connection call from that energy, unconsciously I'm vibrating scarcity. So what I do is I either go for a walk or ground in the garden or do something that brings me back into the energy of gratitude. And from that energy of gratitude and tuning into the abundance that I already have within me, whether that's just the $1 in the bank, not that it is $1, but like say, for example, right? Like it was just the $1. It's like, it's the $1 is more than I need in this moment. And if we go super spiritual, like there is only ever the now moment. And I know that that doesn't pay the bills when we think like that, and we have to create that bridge. But we can bring ourselves back to that place. But if it doesn't happen one day, then it doesn't happen one day, and then we'll just take the day off and get ourselves back to that place. Yes. And I think that's when we can flow, and that's how business can be sustainable. Because otherwise we just drive ourselves like nuts and get exhausted, and the passion that we once had for why we started the business in the first place goes. And so I think, in terms of business advice, hustling no longer works. We're moving, our vibration on the planet is moving beyond that. So when anybody who's still trying to do that, but who's supposed to be on the train to 5D or whatever we want to call it, it won't work for them. So for us, we really have to find a new way of doing business, and that is the authentic and aligned way.
Right. That is an excellent point. And it resonates so much for me right now, because it's like, that's kind of, I really was kind of having a couple of months there where I was like, okay, what's going on? Because I'm used to being able to, like, in those times where, maybe it's a slower month or something like that, I'm usually able to go, okay, this is what I need. And then I'm able to go manifest that and bring that in.
Yeah.
And I was like, that wasn't working. And I'm like, okay, what do I do now? Go ahead.
I was going to ask, do you feel that was because you needed an energetic upgrade, and that just needed time to integrate, and then you were ready to go again?
I'm not entirely sure what it was, but I just actually took a week, like an entire week. And primarily what I did during that week was just go for walks.
Nice.
Like just went and walked. Like I probably put like, I don't even know how many miles or steps on the counter, just because I was like, I just need to space out in my brain. Like, what is it I want? What is it I was doing that I'm no longer doing? Like, where's the misstep? And I kind of did that while I was in that walking, like while I was out walking. And when I came back, I was like, this is what I'm doing. Boom, boom, boom. And it's like immediately doors just went whoosh, open.
Yes. Yeah, I love that story. And there's so many stories like that, because that's the new way of doing business, right? That's how we do business. We go with our flow. And when we're out of flow, we come back into it somehow. And I love, because in walking, it is flowing, right? You're moving.
Yes.
So I love that. Yes.
Yeah. People at the mall are getting to know who I am. It's nice though, because yeah, it's otherwise it's just been so hot out here. But yeah, it's kind of one of those things. I'm like, I don't care if it's 100 degrees out. I'm still getting out and doing that, because it's like, it's such a way to ground and clear.
Exactly.
What are some of the ways that you find are like, when you feel like you're not quite in alignment or not quite in flow, what are some of those practices that you use?
Yeah, going for a walk is one of mine as well. Just leaving the desk and just getting out. Sometimes, especially at the moment, is like just have a nap and just go to sleep. What I love doing, and actually this is a big one, just putting on some affirmations or from YouTube that kind of affirming higher, I'm in flow with the universe, and like affirmations of gratitude. Just, they then help me reprogram. But I think also it's important to acknowledge that we shouldn't run away from the ickiness and just sit with it and feel into, well, what is going on? What is this trying to tell me? Is it just trying to tell me that I need a break? Is that I'm pushing too hard? Is it, that's what you do. It's like, what just, because we are human and we're not meant to be on all the time. Maybe the blockages are coming because we need a break. But yeah, once I've sat with something and I'm thinking, okay, and I've observed it, I'm like, okay, I'm really ready to let this go now. But sometimes that it clings on, it still hangs on, right? So that's when I then go to YouTube and listen to something that has higher vibrations and brings me back into, yes. Or I go and meditate with something.
Awesome. So you work with a lot of your authors and things like that. So tell us, if you have a brand new person coming to you, and they're asking you, hey, Krystal, I have this great story, but I don't know how to get it out. I don't really know how to put it into words, things like that. What would be your best advice to them?
It's an interesting one, because often they either don't even think they have a story, or they think they're not a good writer, or they already know, and then they're coming to me because they're saying, look, I've got this book idea, I want you to publish it. But what would be the advice to start? Because yes, there's, I think 91% of people want to write a book one day. And so one day is always moving into the future. So what would I say is, like, writing, even if you don't think you're a writer, writing it's like a craft. And if we're just writing for 15 minutes every day, something, you think of a topic, you think about something in your life and you start writing about it, like journaling, that could be a good start. Just to getting into the habit of writing. But then at the same time, like, people just have a message and they really don't want to write. The other thing I recommend is just using one of those voice to text transcribers and speaking into that, just to let things flow. And so they don't, just because you don't have time to write or you don't like to write, that you don't lose your beautiful nuggets. Yeah.
I'm smiling because I am not the writer. So that is excellent advice for me, because I will talk through things, but when it comes to actually writing it down, I'm like,
yeah.
All of a sudden I'm like, this feels like this takes time.
Exactly. So what I've been doing, I've been similar, although I do love writing, but sometimes when you're exhausted, you don't want to write. So I've gotten into the habit of, because I get messages in my dreams. So I've gotten into the habit of having my phone. I've got Otter on there, and at 6 o'clock in the morning when I wake up, I record the messages and or the dream or the nuggets, and then it's there for later, and I can then I can put it into a book. But I think also, if for you, for example, if you'd say, okay, I know I'm not a writer, but I know that it's a really good idea for marketing and getting my name out there to share my story in a book. What I would say is, what would I say? I would give you, start writing down all the questions that you ask your podcast guests. And then just then take your phone and just answer them. And then there you've got your chapter.
There you go.
There you go. And then there's editors who can knock it into shape. We just need we need the outline. We need like some kind of structure. And I provide training to all my authors of, how to find the beginning, middle of an end, how to create one theme. So there's one theme that goes through the chapter, so you don't get all over the place. Like, I make my authors look good. Their first draft that they submit to me does not go in the book. They get good feedback, and yeah, it's beautiful. So there's a developmental editing phase, and then it goes to grammatical editor as well.
Right. Well, and also I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's the same thing when I go into website design. A lot of the times when people come to me, I'm like, the very first draft of your website, or like the first draft of the landing page, is usually not what we're going with. We may go to something similar to it. We may build on it. But it's usually not the final. It's not going to be like one showing and we're done.
Exactly. And when you're writing a chapter, it's like you've just got to get the verbal diarrhea onto the page first. Like just get it all out. Once it's
Yes.
out, we can shape it, but we can't do anything with a blank page. So don't worry about what comes out. Just get it out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit similar because whenever I'm building like the website for somebody, I'm like, give me the pieces, and then we'll get them on the page, and then once the pieces are on the page, then we can finesse it. Then we can make it pretty. Then we can change the fonts and the colors and the placement and all the things.
It's almost like there's 3 phases to this creative process. Like the first one is brainstorming. Like some people like brainstorming and mind mapping, or some people just like to channel it through in one big, outpour.
Mm-hmm.
And but when you try and edit while you're writing your stream of consciousness, writing your first draft, it just goes crazy. It becomes so heady and nobody can relate to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, any last words to our viewers?
Given that we've talked a little bit about stories and how we can get them out there, it's like, but if you have that desire, I really want to be in a book, I really want to write my story, I have something to share with the world, just reach out, just start, let's have a conversation. And I've also got a book coming up. It's called Inspired Connections, Unleashing the Magic of Deeper Relationships. And so this book came out of the desire to, my mission is to awaken and empower humanity with all of the works that I do, into deeper sovereignty and connection. And so this fits into that connection piece, because I'm seeing all of us have dysfunctional relationships. Like, it's ancestral, we come in with it, we get modeled it in our childhood. Yes, there's good childhoods, of course, and we all have snippets of that, but there can also be, we're learning so much about dysfunctional relationships, and that we have to relearn, we have to unlearn and retrain ourselves to find out, okay, what is a great relationship? What are the ingredients? Is what do I need to do? Who do I need to become in order to create that? Not just romantically, but also in business, our relationship to our body, our relationship with money, our relationship with the earth. So that's what I'm really wanting to capture in this next book. So if you know somebody who is a relationship expert in whatever area of life and has a beautiful story, wants to become more visible, that's who I would love to have a conversation with.
That's awesome. That's very awesome. I will think on that, and I will get you some. I will send some people your way.
Thank you. Yeah, it's actually a really specific one this time. Like the current one we're doing is called Inspired Creators, and it was so open that it actually took a little longer for people to self-identify. Whereas with this one, I think it'll be faster because it's a more specific topic.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Well, tell everybody how they can find you.
Well, thank you for putting it on the screen. So my website is krystalhill.org, and there is a /publishing if you would like to go and find out about this next project that we're doing. I'm also on LinkedIn and social media and Facebook. That's where I like to play primarily. But yeah, the website is there to kind of go more into the background and the offers that I have. And I'd love to just connect and have a chat.
Absolutely. Awesome. And just to kind of close the show, I am your host, Cassie Clayton. You can find me at Stargazers Unite, or Stargazers Unite pretty much across all platforms. I create websites, logos, and brand materials for spiritual business owners.
And you've got the ability to tune into somebody, which is what I love about you, tuning into their energy and then translate that into a brand.
Thank you. You're welcome. So with that, we will see everybody next time. Krystal, thanks so much for joining me, and I look forward to us connecting further and doing more things.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Cassie.
Absolutely. All right. Bye.
Bye.